Welcome back to another episode of Four Doors and GT4's. I am Stu, and I'm joined, as always, by IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge race engineer Aaron Pfeiffer. Aaron, how's it going this evening? It's been a few weeks since we've spoke. I know it's been a couple weeks since VIR, but how are things going?
Yeah, it's going pretty good. It's kind of hard to believe that we're talking about the penultimate round of the championship here on the back half of the episode. Pretty crazy that the summer just ends and you're 2 weeks or two races away from it being over and sitting around for 3 months waiting for it to start again.
Yeah, it's I was thinking about that too, like, VIR, at least, from the WeatherTech Championship perspective and from your guys' perspective as well. You guys have, follow very closely to the WeatherTech schedule. And yeah, I was looking, I was like, it's VIR already, and we only have 2 rounds left after this. They're both 2-hour rounds for you guys. But at some iconic venues that we still have left, Indianapolis, you guys got to race there last year. If I'm not mistaken, Indy was into the dark last year.
Yeah.
Did you guys get to go under the lights?
What lights? There's not any. Yeah, they had some temporary lights up in some spots, but yes, that was bring that back. We all liked it in the pilot challenge paddock. It was very cool. We had the 4 hours into the darkness. A little challenging to check the headlight strength of touring cars there at the end. They're not really built. I mean, they're just the street car headlights, so there's nothing crazy like the GT3 cars have. But yeah, that was extremely fun last year. It was my first time at Indy last year, and instantly fell in love with it. I mean, when you're standing on that pit lane and surrounded by the stands on both sides and walking across the bricks and stuff, it hits you that you're in a very cool place.
Yeah, definitely. I've never been to Indy, and it's not actually too far for me to get to. So it's definitely on the bucket list to go to for sure, whether it's for an IMSA race or if it's for the 500.
Yeah, the 500. Yeah, I gotta go. I gotta see that place with 300 something thousand people there.
Yeah, I think that would be it's a reason why it's kind of a spectacle. So but we'll talk about Indy more later on in the show. We'll get into previewing that race, what we can kind of expect from it. But before we do that, let's talk VIR, the third to last round of the Michelin Pilot Challenge schedule, actually the IMSA schedule in general. But before we get into the Michelin Pilot Challenge, just want to quickly touch on the other support series that were present there. The VP Sports Car Challenge. We've seen domination from Jagger Jones all season. It seems. I don't think he's won every race, but he won every race at VIR, sweeping the weekend in the
I
LMP3
think he won every race on track. I think he just got DQ'd from one, if I remember
Oh
correctly.
yeah, he did get DQ'd.
He
Oh
wasn't at Daytona, and then I think they got DQ'd at CTMP out of one of them, I
yeah,
believe.
I think it was the last round they were DQ'd in the race one or something at CTMP. Yeah, I think
But
you're
yeah,
right.
he's been laying a hurting on everybody in that championship.
There's he has competition periodically, but they just can't see. It's just they're not as consistently fast as he is in that car. He's been really strong, and like, you may glance over some of the VP Sports Car Challenge results or the races, may not tune in, but we've seen some really strong competitors come out of this series in recent years. Bioy Garg was a Le Mans
Yeah, last
champion.
year's champion, yeah, won Le Mans this year. Yeah.
Yep. And so it is a stepping stone series that can propel drivers who are very successful in it onto other things. So it is worthwhile
Yeah.
tuning in for.
Can we talk about the VP Challenge news?
We can, yes. let's touch on the other winner in the
Yeah,
GSX
okay.
class before we talk about the big news. You're right, I actually completely forgot about that. And that was Luca Mars, who like Jagger Jones has kind of been putting a hurting on people in the GSX class. The Ford Mustangs in general have been very fast in the VP Sports Car Challenge, and he also swept the weekend there. But as
Which
you
is
were
interesting
alluding,
because the Mustang has 0 wins in pilot so far this year, but has been very successful in VP, yes.
it is interesting how that works. I didn't check to see if it's the same BOP that they run for
Uh,
both of the series.
98% sure it is, yes.
Yeah, one would think that it would be,
Yeah.
but I would probably be safe to assume. You were alluding to it though a second ago. There is some news in the VP Sports Car Challenge world, and it comes in the form of a brand new class. The class that's going to be joining us in 2025 is going to be the GT. Was it GT
DX,
GTDX?
right?
Is it
GTD.
GT? I don't remember if it's GT3X or GTDX.
Evans GTDX, yes.
Okay.
LM,
That would stay in line with IMSA's sort of naming convention there.
yes.
Um, but the GTDX class that'll be joining the VP Sports Car Challenge class will consist of 2024 homologated GTD cars from IMSA. So you could see the likes of, one that comes to mind immediately is the Acura, that's not going to be competing on the WeatherTech Championship grid next year, but that you could look at that as a prime candidate to potentially run in the VP Sports Car Challenge. It's going to be a part of their sprint race format, as the same as the VP Sports Car Challenge is this year. Just bringing that extra class into play. Did When you saw the news, what were sort of the initial thoughts that you had on this?
My very first thought was if you're SRO, you're probably pretty frustrated by that news. They've been struggling with car count. It's no secret this last year or two. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a competitor to those guys. It's not completely shocking to me though. I know that IMSA has been turning cars away at certain tracks this year. I've heard that supposedly IMSA could enter 80 cars into the Rolex next year. That's how many people they have that want to be in Rolex for next year. So, you have already GTD is stacked. We had over 20 cars in GTD and, 10 something cars in GTD Pro at the big endurance races this year. So I think it's a great way to get teams into the sport on the IMSA side, cheaper. You get not a lot of track time though. I think they said they were going to bump VP up to like from 30 minutes to 45 minutes of practice. So you still
Yep.
don't get a lot of actual track time, but you do get 2 races in. There's no torque sensors, which I know is the big cost concern for next year. I don't have any insight to know how much actual cost that adds to a team, but yeah, I think it's exciting for IMSA for sure. I think we're gonna have to stick all these trucks somewhere in the paddock. I mean, it's gonna be interesting, but I think it will be good for that series and probably be kind of fun. I can't, I can't think of a time. Well, you've never seen it in IMSA where you had GT3s and GT4s on track at the same time. You see it in
True.
SRO, obviously, but I think it's going to be fun and a way to probably build the farm system of IMSA even more. If you want to slide over from GT4 to GT3, you could now do that out of pilot or VP and stay in VP and not have all the investment into running a 24-hour race, a 12-hour race with the amount of crew you need. When you're in VP, you don't need to carry nearly as many crew to the track, obviously, because you don't have pit stops. So I think it's a smart move by IMSA and probably going to see pretty decent car count in there if I had to guess.
Yeah, I think, I agree completely. It really does add another element to IMSA's sort of their ladder You know, being able to compete in some of these sprint race formats, get that, you know, introduction to multi-class racing. There's going to be 3 classes here now. Those GTD cars are gonna, or GTDX cars are gonna have to compete with the LMP3s out on class, which we all know that got kind of interesting at times in the WeatherTech Championship. So it should be fun to see that reignited on track. And yeah, you alluded to it. It's a bit more of a cost effective way for you know, some of these teams that to dip their toes in and be part of the IMSA paddock. Where are they going to put everybody? That's a good question. We see it a lot right now in the VP Sports Car Challenge, where there's a lot of teams that are, you know, they might be competing in the Michelin Pilot Challenge or in the WeatherTech Championship that are, you know, just bringing a car to race in the Sports Car Challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
So,
I'm all for more cars at the track and more teams involved. So yeah, I'm excited for it. It's a great way for anybody to get entry level into GT3. Not only drivers and teams, but you know, crew guys and all those type of people that want to build their careers up as well.
yep. And they announced the schedule to go along with it. It's a pretty nice schedule, actually. It's going to be, of course, 2 race weekends for all of these, for a total of 12 races over the 6 race or 6 destination schedule, I guess you could say. It all kicks off at the Roar before the 24 weekend. So not the Rolex weekend. It is the qualifying weekend, the weekend before that. No, not qualifying anymore. I guess it's just the test weekend now. But that takes place January 17th to 19th. Then one of the very interesting additions here is the Sports Car Challenge is going to be supporting NASCAR at Circuit of the Americas, February 28th to March 1st. Yeah, that's
that.
Yeah, we already see, you know, that some NASCAR crossover in the on the Rolex 24 weekend, particularly in the Michelin Pilot Challenge class. Generally speaking, we see a fair number of Ford drivers in particular that will come and get a little bit of extra experience on the road course. It's outside of the NASCAR calendar.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bubba Wallace.
Yep. Yep. So, you know, could we see some additional NASCAR drivers hop in and get some additional seat time at COTA? There's a very good chance we might. At the very least, there's going to be a lot of exposure for NASCAR fans to, you know, maybe check out one of the IMSA series and gain some new fans as a result of it. So hopefully that's a successful race weekend. It carries on from there to Mid Ohio. In June 6th to 8th, Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, June 11th to 13th, Virginia for a couple of races at the end of August, and it all wraps up at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, October 8th to 11th next year. So a very similar calendar to what we've seen from the series this year, but should be fun to watch. One of the things that was interesting is that they are using success ballast in this series. So I can't recall IMSA ever utilizing this before. I don't know if you've heard of it.
It's a great place to try it. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, try it in, you know, one of your, you know, I don't know that you could call, you know, VP and pilot, you know, which one's the AAA and which one's the AA series anymore. I mean, you know, you get a little bit of, you know, pros and cons of both. But yeah, I think it's you know, I'd rather them try it out there than try it out at in WeatherTech or in Pilot.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Of course,
Definitely.
I don't know. I might have liked to see some people have some success Pilot in Pilot this year. Actually, now I think about it.
Yes. That wouldn't have. I'm sure you wouldn't have minded some success ballots being implemented this year, but the only other thing that I'll note about the announcement, well, this isn't really an announcement. It just stays in line with the VP Sports Car Challenge, and that's that it's going to be limited to only silver and bronze drivers. There's going to be no pro drivers in here. It's single driver lineups, no driver changes, no pit stops, anything like that. So So yeah, exciting news there from one of IMSA's support series.
Yeah.
Other series that were present at VIR, we also saw the Whelen Mazda MX-5 Cup, where Jeremy Fletcher swept the weekend in that series. Always fun to watch the MX-5s rip around VIR. It provides some pretty good racing, some pretty good stack ups as well. Cars bumping each other through the corner a couple of times. So always fun to see those cars compete at any track, but VIR was a fun one to watch. And it's not necessarily an IMSA support series per se, but the historic NASCAR was also there. HSR
That was
was present.
different. Yeah, that was kind of cool.
Yeah,
Uh,
did you get a chance to take a look at any of the cars, or what
yeah,
was like?
we were actually yeah. So pilots, the only series is done on Saturday. So when you're done on Saturday, you get put in the back of the paddock so that people can park in it on Sunday. So us and the NASCAR guys were both back there in the back. So we were lined up against all of them, and yeah, I mean, Joe Nemechek had like 6 cars. He was right across from us. I almost knocked over Richard Petty by accident, walking the FP2 with Preston. I, um, I was like, "Who is wearing this crazy hat?" And then I almost ran into him. I was like, "Oh, is that? It's the only guy that actually wears hats like that." So yeah, even the King was there. So that was kind of cool. You could definitely hear him ripping around on the track. Uh,
Sure.
different cars. I mean, they had cars anywhere from the '80s to AO had one of Chase Elliott's cars that looked just to be a couple years old. So yeah, kind of a mixed bag. There's a truck or two, I think. So yeah, it was different.
Yeah, it was cool to just see them incorporating some of the HSR stuff into one of the race weekends, because there's a lot of cool racing that takes place there, and it's not that it's not as accessible to fans. I just think that a lot of fans don't necessarily know a lot about it. So I think it was pretty cool to see some of those older, or in some cases, as you said, that Chase Elliott car was not very old, cars ripping around on around VIR. And there was some of the there was a couple of WeatherTech drivers that were competing in cars. I think Mike Skeen and
I was gonna say Michigan was in one, yeah.
yep,
Yeah, and then you had like Joe Nemechek, who
yep.
is a NASCAR Winston Cup winner. Yeah, so you had anywhere from just gentleman drivers who own the car and they're run by a team for them to old NASCAR stars to current IMSA stars.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see. So yeah, if you didn't have an I mean, maybe we'll see some of that more. We'll see some of that more in the coming years if IMSA wants to. I guess IMSA in conjunction with sort of HSR, which is owned by IMSA. But
I bet you end up seeing them at Lime Rock Truck Series race next year, right? That was announced. So
that is
Lime Rock
true.
is getting a big race back. It's just not IMSA. It is NASCAR trucks. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you see him go over there. Although you're pretty pressed for paddock space in Lime Rock. I don't know. You can only get maybe 3 series max in there.
Okay, so yeah, that
NASCAR guys
yeah, we
also
could.
don't use canopies, so they can pack their
Mm,
trailers in there pretty tight.
true. That's
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
Well, we'll have to stay tuned for some of that, but I think we've waited long enough at this point. It's time to talk about the Michelin Pilot Challenge race that took place at VIR. An interesting race. It towards the end, sort of, I guess, in the final, half hour of the race, we saw an incredible battle. That was, I know IMSA posted a highlight of just this battle that took place in the race. It was a great battle between was it the 93? Is that the Montreal
Yeah,
Motorsport Group?
93
Yes,
and
the
99.
93, and the 99 Victor Gonzalez racing team Hyundai. That turned out to be, a battle for victory in the TCR class. But overall, a solid race here. We did see a couple of full course yellows. One of them for a car running out of fuel, it seemed, the Baby Bull Racing Porsche.
If we ever need a yellow this season, just count on a GT4 Porsche to run out of fuel when you don't think you're gonna get
True.
yellow in a race, and that's how you get them.
That is a very
There
good
was one
point.
at
That
Laguna
is,
when I needed it. I really needed one of them to run out of fuel at Laguna, but yeah, yeah, it was the battles at the end were great, and pardon us for jinxing the championship a couple races ago, and we said TGM can run away and hide with it. I mean, it has just been a nightmare for them the last 2 weekends, as it has been for other people in championship races like myself. But yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, forget anything we said about the championship battles being over because that is far from the case.
yeah, those championships are heating up, and like you said, we'll touch on those in a little bit. But speaking of the championship, or championship contending Aston Martin in the GT4 class, they were caught up in an incident in the first hour of the race. They got together with, I think there was 3 Aston Martins in this that all got together.
Yeah.
The 46 ended up spun across, lightly touched the barrier, but not really any significant damage to the car. It was more or less, just a big loss of time. Really
Well,
set
no,
them back a lot.
they had to go on pit lane behind the wall and fix something.
Oh, did they have to go behind the wall?
They lost 3 laps. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah. And then Rory's car with Scott in it, they were third in the championship and they were done for the
Yep.
day. So yeah, the Aston that wasn't in the championship, kind of in the middle there, Skip Barber car. Yeah, very very bad day for Aston Martin in the points championship. Another championship that we were saying, well, you could run away and hide was them in the manufacturers championship, and Porsche's right there behind them. So yeah, we can just get into it. I mean, the race I thought was kind of playing out how you thought it would the first hour
Yeah.
or so there, and then you get that yellow. All the GS cars had already stopped, and then you have everyone take that yellow. GCRs have not stopped yet. The GSs all fill up with fuel. Some of them took left side tires or whatever it was, and they all shuffle back out. And they're kind of thinking maybe we're close to making it on the end, making it on fuel. TCRs, you think you're going to make it on fuel at that point. You have another battle off the pit lane there. That's where you saw the 99 car jump from sixth to
Yep.
first in that sequence. Um, and then you have that yellow right after it. Then you go, okay, well, maybe everybody can make it on fuel, except the one Porsche that was leading had not stopped during the full course yellow. And once again, we have a fuel mileage race in Pilot Challenge where our winner ends up being the one car that didn't take the splash and stretch the fuel till the end. So yeah, I thought that was interesting that no matter which way we shake these things, we keep having fuel mileage races.
Yeah, fuel mi that has been a very consistent theme this year. Fuel mileage race after fuel mileage race. We get the full course yellow that falls right around that hour mark and kind of throws everything that we were thinking about the race kind of on its head a little bit. It can really, catch some people out. It can really benefit others. But yeah, another fuel mileage race in the Pilot Challenge. And you mentioned Aston Martin having a bad day in the GS class as well. That's not even to mention the only Evo version of that car, the Rebel Rock Racing
Oh yeah,
Aston. They
rip,
had There was a couple of offs that
yeah,
they had ripped the front splitter off the car. Um,
rip the rear diffuser off is what I re-listened to the IMSA race broadcast today, and yeah, that's what Frank had or the team had reported had happened on that car is that you lost the front splitter and the rear diffuser, and I still think that car ended up finishing seventh after all that.
yeah,
So yeah, I think they might have been the best finishing Aston. Oh no, Archangel was in sixth. So yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Who needs Arrow on a GT4 car?
Yeah, Robin Liddell does. I mean, yeah, just give him give him four wheels, and he's gonna he's gonna do something with that car. It was interesting to see how that car was going to perform in the second half of that race, but they managed to bring it home. They managed to bring it home.
Yeah, but I mean, looking at GT4, it's just it's crazy how just nothing in this championship can be taken for granted or decided. I mean, you look at RS1 was going, oh, they hadn't had a win in 2.5 years, and they go win second, and then you have some bad luck for the TGM car, and all of a sudden that championship battle is very, very tight all of a sudden with 2 races to go, and seems to be TGM on the back foot right now, and RS1 with all the momentum. So where can they go from here? That's exciting. I mean, it seems like it always comes down to that, though. TCR seems to be a little bit more gaps sometimes in the championship. You had a couple of years ago where Taylor and Michael just had to start the race to secure the championship. But yeah, I mean, what was it? 10 points decided the GT4 championship last year. It looks like it might be 1 or 2 positions at Road Atlanta can decide it again this year.
Yeah, I mean the end of the season last year where there was the
That was a good
we
one.
didn't know until the very last lap, and a little bit controversial, but
One of the ultimate petty moves, which I find hilarious still. Yes,
yeah.
which was revenge for VIR. Yeah. Anyway.
Yep, but
Yeah.
there's no wreck there's no wreck at VIR this year, I don't think. Well, no,
Well, they're
was
not in. Yeah. I don't think. Yeah. No, I don't think the.
yeah,
I
I
don't
don't
think the RS1 or the 46 car have got in made anybody mad this year. Like I can remember.
yeah, so they keep your friends close and your enemies closer, but if you don't have enemies, then that's always nice to have. So yeah, the GT4 class, we saw some great racing again here at VIR. The Porsches really seemed to be the class of the field in this one. The Fords were strong as well, but I don't think that they were quite on the same level as the Porsches. The Porsches ended up finishing 1, 2, and 4.
Yeah.
Were and
They
then
easily had 1, 2, 3. Riley was. I think
yep.
they got passed by the Ford at later
Well,
stages of the race. Yeah.
yeah, and a couple of the other Porsches were running fairly well at various points in the race as well. The this I'm not going to be able to pronounce it. Probably that Sabak, Simpson Motorsports, and Baby Bull. They both showed glimpses of pace. I mean, Baby Bull they were leading when they ran out of gas. Although
I hate when that happens.
yeah, oh yeah, true. You've had a couple of encounters with very close fuel mileage this year,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, we can talk about crappy things now. We can go to TCR in my race.
yeah, I was gonna transition that to some of the TCR happenings, and this as you alluded to a couple minutes ago, there was trouble for the championship contenders here. First, it was for the 17, the Unitronic JDC Miller Motorsports Audi, who has been leading the championship since race 1 of the season. They've had a very strong year. But it was Mikey Taylor that had a couple. Oh no, sorry, Chris Miller that had a couple of offs. He was the starting driver. He had an off in qualifying. I heard.
Both him and Robert had separate offs in qualifying. Yeah.
Okay, so he had an off in qualifying, and then he also followed that up with an off at Oak Tree in the early stages of this race. Did pick up a little bit of damage from tapping the wall. It didn't seem to be too significant. They would, I believe, I'm not sure if they lost a lap right away, but at the end of the day, they ended up finishing on the lead lap.
Decided to pit. Yeah.
Yeah.
They pit a little early and then lose a lap, but then they got it back in the wave by. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But
So
they would get hung out to dry in that sequence though by just like a human error thing on race controls part. So, you take the wave by there, and then you come back, you come back around, and you come in and you pit, and you get back out before the light closes, and you can catch back around, and you made a lap back. That's how everybody does it in IMSA. So, we were 5 laps down at the time. JDC was 1 lap. I think Baker was a lap down, and Goo were a lap down too. Anyway, so the 4 of us are riding around, and JDC and us, we come down to do our service. We still need to get Dennis in the car at that point. And they say JDC has entered a closed pit on race control. And I popped my head up, and pits should not be closed at that point for any
Yeah.
reason. We have a light on our pit box that we share with Vassar that tells you when the full course yellow is out,
Yep.
when pit closed light's out, when pit open light is out. And so all the lights are dark, and but then I'm second guessing myself because we're right behind them. So I'm telling Preston to ride. I was like, don't stop in the box. And then they say, never mind, pits are open. But JDC had already come to their box and then weaved back out. And so they didn't get to stop. Luckily, we were at the end of pit lane, so I screen box at the end. We get in and get our service done. Not that it really mattered if we were out of the race at that point, but that
Yeah.
really cost JDC because they couldn't get their
Yeah.
service done, so they ended up having to splash at the end of the race. And it's just unfortunate like thing. I mean, it just was an error on someone's fault on the race control side, and I know they told JDC that afterwards, but it definitely probably cost them a shot at another position or two. But that seems to be how things can go sometimes. But yeah, I mean, before we talk about the great TCR race and the finish, I mean, I can briefly touch on our weekend. It was off
Yeah.
to a bit of a rocky start. Lots of people can go off an oak tree. We also went off an oak tree in FP1 in that day, and luckily it was just a lot of body work damage, and we actually were able to finish the session. But then just shout out to my crew; they just thrashed on that thing, and we had it back out for FP2. We actually even used all the same body work. I mean, we didn't even have to. We didn't. It looked a little crunchy in a couple spots, but we reused everything. The bumper looked almost good as new, and so that put us a little behind on the weekend, but we still felt that we had some really good pace. And then come race time, you only have 10 cars entered that weekend, which is a bit of a bummer. But where Preston has a good start, we're riding around P7, I believe. JDC has the off, and you go, okay, well, here we go. Maybe this is our chance to get back in to the championship, cut some points out of them. That Audi seems to be a tank, though. I mean, 'cause
Yeah.
not only did they go off, Goo would later go off and put their Audi in a wall, and both of the Audis would finish. So you can run those things in the wall, and shout out to Audi for making a strong car. And then I'm actually watching the monitors, and I watch Preston at the end of the back straight go off, and when he's going off,
Yeah.
his tire is locked, and these cars have ABS, so they shouldn't be doing that. So I'm hoping it's like some one-off glitch. At first he said he thought he lost drivetrain, and then he drives through the grass, and he's like, I still have power. I say, well, try to keep going. And then he goes into turn one. He says, I have no ABS, and instantly me and everybody on the crew go wheel speed sensor. Most likely you've lost a wheel speed sensor at that point. So he comes around for a lap, and we come in and take off. He says it's in the left front, and is where the car feels wrong, and pull it off, and we've straighted the wire on the wheel speed sensor there. So that was kind of the day's done. 23
Yeah.
minutes into the race or whatever it is. My guys did a great job getting it fixed, but they're trying to fix it over a 1,500-degree brake rotor. So
Yeah.
it's a little challenging. They have gloves, helmet, goggles on. Not an easy fix to do on pit lane. It ended up costing us 5 laps by the time it's all said and done. And after that, we're just kind of in ride around mode. We got a lap back off the wave by, and we just needed. We had, if it had been Rolex, we could have come back from that deficit, but
True.
Yeah, and then your drive time's messed up as well because obviously your driver time on pit lane doesn't count. So,
Yep.
Preston was on pit lane for 10 minutes, so we had an extra 10 minutes of time we had to get Preston in. So, we'd get Denny in on the sequence I talked about earlier, and then we'd pass a couple cars, and we just would ride behind our team car till the end of the race, right behind Taylor there. So, yeah, I mean, super disappointing for us, obviously, but we win as a team and we lose as a team. So no one to blame or anything on it. It's just one of those things that happens in racing. I've lost speed sensors on the Ferrari at Sebring last year, so I've lost one on the Audi before, on the old Audi before. So it's a kind of fragile part where of
Yep.
that one wire running along the brake line. Basically 10 cents worth of zip ties coming loose is what
Yeah.
undid, is what undid our weekend. So yeah, I mean, not not the best day for us, but I will say that I did basically get to kick back and watch the race with everybody else on the TV on the pit stand for the last 30 minutes and watch a great battle unfold for the lead with two deserving teams that haven't seen too much time up front this year, and it was nice to see. Uh, of course, I was pulling for Victor's car as a Hyundai car,
Yep.
and I just really like Victor a lot. I think he's a really solid guy, and Tyler and his dad. I end up flying on planes with them a lot out of Charlotte, so
Oh yeah.
yeah, I see those guys a lot, and yeah, that was a great battle. And Carl's a super nice guy as well, and it was great to see fun and clean racing for those. I mean, there was what
Yeah.
6 laps they would pass each other and pass each other back, and 93 is in the dirt, and finally a real clever move by Carl to get him into turn one, which isn't where he'd been getting him. He'd been getting him at the end of the back straight. So that was a fun battle to watch those guys. Great to see the Honda guys get their first win. But that crazy to think that that car has not won at all yet.
Yeah. Especially
Um,
with how quick like the speed that they've shown throughout the season so far. It is
yeah, and
wild.
last season too, when LA
Yeah,
Honda was
true.
in that car. I mean, Pombo was like fast as ever where we went for the first 7 races or something with that car.
Yep.
So a disappointing day for us at Brian Hurt Autosport. Obviously, Bryson drove awesome in the first half of the race. I mean, he kind of left everybody in the dust there. Um,
Yeah.
and Mark was there right behind him, and then those guys would end up finishing third and fourth, or I'm sorry, or fourth and sixth, and Robert and Harry would end up getting third, and those guys actually had to change an engine between qualifying and the race, which is why he lost his second place starting grid spot and went back to the back of the field, and so it was another drive through the field race for those guys, and
It
hats off
seems
to
like
them.
if it's not one thing, it's another for that 33 car this year. If there's a couple of times where they've had a good qualifying run and had to go to the
There's only
back.
been one race this year where we have gotten to race side by side with those guys. Either us or them are having an off day every single time, and it was at Mid Ohio, and that was Harry and Dennis. Robert and Dennis still haven't gotten to race like side by side all year, and we're always going like we're ready for it. Like we want to see it. We think it'd be fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, bad day for us in the points. Good day for Hyundai in the points. Hyundai padded their manufacturer's lead a little bit, but at the same point, JDC, has a pretty solid margin right now going into the last 2 rounds of the year. And if you read the article IMSA put out yesterday with JDC, you'd think they had the championship in the bag already, which I wouldn't be counting my chickens before I hatch like that. But yeah, that's kind of our weekend in a nutshell. But touring car racing on display as being awesome as it always is. I mean, that was a
Yeah.
great battle between two privateer teams going at it for an IMSA win, and it was deserving. Both of them deserved to win. And so, but I know what it's like to get that first win, get that monkey off your back for that team. I know they're excited. I know what it's like to get a podium after being on a long dry run. And so I know how Victor's guys felt as well. I saw them come back after post race tech. I was looking for in Victor's trailer to try to find him, and they came back from post race tech, and they had passed it, and they all. I literally saw a couple of them kiss the car. So it's kind of how it goes sometimes.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff. Yeah, it was a great final stint of the race. We saw some good racing. Even, on the GS side, things it was a tight finish
Yeah, yeah, for
between the
sure.
top essentially, the top four cars. All of them were separated by less than a second when they crossed the line. So
Yeah, I forgot
you
how
know,
long it was. Something crazy long time since Spencer Pompelli had last won a race. They said it during the broadcast. I forget what it was now, but it's been a while. So another person, feeling vindicated and getting that monkey off their back as well.
Yep. And, for me in both classes as a Canadian, we had a couple of Canadians on the top step of the podium in both of those classes with
Oh well,
Thomas
there you go.
Collingwood, the co-driver for Spencer, and then of course Whitmer
Oh
in
yeah,
TCR. So I
very
need
good.
a little Canada flag, to wave.
Yeah,
No, but rounding also on the podium in the GS class. You mentioned Spencer Propelli, Thomas Collingwood, BGB Motorsports. They're not only their first win of the season, but this is by far their best finish of the season. They haven't even had a podium up until this point. Sitting down in 17th in the GS standings now. So good to see them get a well-deserved victory in this one. A strong weekend for them. Finishing in second, Stephen McAleer and Trent Hidman. Man, RS1 is coming on very strong and making a charge at Team TGM for the championship points lead. And then rounding out the podium, Luca Mars and oh boy, driver Ben Mickelson,
I
right?
don't know who their other driver is. Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
dang it.
Our RS1 has two firsts and 2 seconds now this year. So yeah, they're on quite a nice little run there in GS, and yeah, close the gap down to a 50 point gap with two races to go is like I said before, that's exciting.
Yeah, it is. It's good to see. Like you said earlier, we were looking at the GS championship fight and thinking, oh, is this? Are we really going to see a fight here at the end of it, or are we going to be talking about some of the other battles further down? But no, this is really developed into a nice battle in GS, and I guess that's just a good opportunity for us to talk about the GS championship hunt here. It is still Team TGM that leads with 2,170 points, but the gap is now just 50 points back to the RS1 Porsche. So there's a lot to be fought for here still. Everything is still up for grabs. 250 points off the lead, though, is the number 19 Vandister Racing Aston Martin. So that's where you start to see some of the gap, or there is some gaps there between sort of those top two, and then as you go down. But also, I mean, looking at these points from I mean, fourth through ninth, fourth through ninth are separated by 100 points. So there are a lot of good teams in that, and there's plenty of battling that still remains to be done in the GS hunt.
Well, and there's a battle in these championships that TV doesn't really talk about is that when you're in the top three in points, even if you're not in that number one spot, the top three, they all get trophies. They all get recognized at the awards dinner. So it's a point of pride. It's certainly a goal of my car is for sure to try to finish in the top three. You want a nice trophy at the end of the year. You want your work rewarded. So yeah, not only is the championship battle there, but if you're not in the championship hunt, but you're battling for the top three spots, it's still something you want at the end of the day because it's just like a race. If you finish fourth, there's nothing to show for it. So yeah, everybody wants to not only win the championship, but if they can't be in one of those top three spots, second or third at the end of the year, and get a trophy and get a nice night at the awards dinner and all those kind of things.
Yep. Spot on. Yep. Definitely definitely more to be running for than just the very top or just the championship. There's a lot that these teams are running for. There's in the GS class there is also a bronze there's a bronze
It's already
championship.
been won.
Yes, it has already been clinched. There's only
I bet.
one team that's actually really running in it full time, so that
Yeah.
definitely helps. But yeah, plenty to watch for. Moving
Yeah, and
on to the TC. Oh, yep.
the manufacturers championship,
Oh, yes.
Porsche only one podium finish behind Aston Martin now, so they are 30 points behind Aston Martin. That's definitely a two-horse race, but that's something that definitely the manufacturers care a lot about.
Yeah.
Not talked about so much on TV and stuff, but yeah, that's a very tight manufacturers battle now in what looked to be an Aston Martin runaway when we left Watkins Glen.
Yep. Should be fun to watch those in at Indy and then rounding the season out at Petite. TCR now. It was Dai Yoshihara and Carl Whitmer winning for Montreal Motorsports Group. There's a lot of Whitmers.
You can't say you have Canadian pride and then not know his name like 2 seconds later.
Well, I knew it. I took a moment, okay? Dai Yoshihara and Carl Whitmer winning for Montreal Motorsports Group. Their first win, of course, of the season, the Honda Civic FL5, the first win in IMSA for that car. So big weekend for Honda and that team. That team that has also gone down to just a single entry now after starting the season with 2. Coming up second, the Victor Gonzalez Racing Team Hyundai of Tyler Gonzalez, and I do not have
Morgan
the first.
Burkhart.
There we go. Thank you for bailing me out. I was
Welcome.
counting on that. He's not Canadian, so I'm not going to know his first name.
Yeah.
And rounding out the podium, we have the number 33 Brian Hurd Autosports Hyundai of Harry Gottsacker and Robert Wickens. So the 33 with the podium does gain some championship points on the 17 Unitronic JDC Miller Motorsports Audi, who have 2,450 points to the number 33's 2,280. So 170 points separating those two cars with 2 races to go. It's the championship is not over yet. I think it's probably safe to assume that we'll probably see a couple more cars on the grid in the TCR class at Road Atlanta and Indy. I mean, that's probably speculating.
I know of one coming back for sure. I know of one that won't be there at Indy though, and then I know of 2 coming back for Road Atlanta. So yeah, I mean, yeah, Indy drew a really good crowd last year. I mean, I know it was a 4-hour race, but I feel like we'll hopefully we'll see some of these guys we haven't seen in a few races, like Hart and Racer's Edge and those guys back there for Indy.
Yeah, Starcom too, maybe. Hopefully,
yeah, I can't. Don't ask me. I don't know what Starcom's doing.
I know for sure that Baker won't be there at Indy, but is returning for Road Atlanta. So
I did know that. Yes.
Yeah, that was another car that running in the top 3 in the first stint of the race, and then they had something go awry on the pit stop, and they had a fuel issue, I think, again.
They ended up parking on the back straight.
That's support pit, right?
Yeah, we were having another really strong run. Those guys have been impressive. Sounds like we might see them, fingers crossed, a lot next season. Hopefully in that alley. So that would be cool.
Yes, hopefully those plans.
Our chat's pretty dead today. Normally we got Sam in there saying something in there to give us a little something, but yeah.
That's true. I know Sam's coming off. He had a busy weekend this past weekend with the FEL Sports Car Championship. So they had their season finale up at CTMP. So
I know that Pegram will be at Indy. They were at
Okay.
the last round at Road America, so
Yep.
I know that they will be there. So that's at least one more back. Yeah, if you look at the other cars that have run this season, yeah, I don't know if we'll see the number 6 car back. Road Shagger has been in and out. I don't know that Victor's other car is coming back this year. Hart, we haven't. Hart normally does 6 races a year. It looks like they've done 4, so
Oh, okay.
thinking they would probably be back for the last 2. Um, Baker, we talked about Racer's Edge. I believe they said they were running 5 races this year in Daytona, so they've only run 3 this year, so maybe we'll see them back.
Yep.
Start. I know Rockwell won't be back. Dealey, that car we've only seen uh, twice all year, and then Pegram was the other one. So yeah, hopefully, yeah, we'd like to see some more, and then uh, get excited for next year, and hopefully some big car counts as well, with maybe some shakeups coming out next year.
Yeah, yeah, it should be, the WeatherTech Championship kind of it takes the spotlight when it comes to sort of the silly season, drive if there's any, manufacturer changes with teams, new cars coming, etc. But definitely worthwhile keeping an eye on the Michelin Pilot Challenge as well for news regarding that. But I guess to wrap up VIR, is there anything any concluding thoughts that you have from the VIR weekend?
Yeah, I hate VIR. I've had
Oh,
4 turds of races for 4 years in a row there. So, yeah, I don't know what I gotta do to have a decent weekend at VIR. I've had, very fast cars there a couple years, including this year, and, nothing to show for it. But, yeah, it's, for us, for the '76 car, it's kind of, sink or swim time. We've had 2 bad races in a row, so it's about what you do to bounce back from it and not let them snowball and ruin what has been a very good season for us. And so we're all determined to bounce back. We want to go win these last 2 races. We want to get a top 3 points championship finish. Like I said, we lost our second place spot to Robert and Harry after this weekend, and then now we only have a 20-point lead over fourth and a 30-point lead over fifth. The 93 cars come roaring back with their great 3 podium
yeah.
streaks in a row. But we know how to string podium streaks together as well. So that's what we're going to try to do. I mean, we ran really well at Indy last year. Dennis and myself, Denny was flying in a car that was underpowered, honestly, with the BOP in the old Audi last year. And we led a lot of the back half of that race and ended up getting passed by Mark with 1 lap to go to lose the
Yeah.
podium at the first ever Indy race. So we owe him a pass at Indy as well to get him back to that one. But yeah, so it's tough, like the ones where you come off a win or you come off a podium, you feel like you could take 6 weeks off and just think about the race and enjoy it. And when you have bad ones like that, you're ready to go racing just right away.
Yeah.
But it's we have a month off here. It's nice for the crew to get a breath here and to reset for these last 2 races. It's a home race for Brian Herter Autosport coming
Yep.
up. Our shop is a quarter mile away from turn 1 there at Indy. So yeah, we're excited for the weekend coming up, and we'll talk about it now. But yeah, VAR in the past. Uh, Come on, you gotta give me one time VIR. I'm getting tired of
One of these years, one of
it.
these
One
years.
of these. They got a cool looking little trophy they give them too. Yeah. Oh well.
Oh, is it the Michelin Man for the Pilot Challenge as well? No.
No, it's like I'd have to find a picture of it. It's like the VIR logo suspended and then onto a little pedestal. It's cool. I've seen it the last couple.
Okay. Now
Yeah,
the VIR does have a nice logo for the track, so I could see that being a cool trophy. I'll have
I,
to see if I
I,
can find a picture of it.
I didn't talk about it, but the crowd was awesome on Saturday. Just great.
Yeah.
I had a few guests join me. That's it's only about 4 hours from my house, and I do a lot of business and have a lot of customers in my day job. up there, and I had a lot of them join me. And I had some of them. I mean, you haven't been to VIR, but people that have been, they were having to park over the bridge. That's how far the parking was out there. And when I was trying to leave at 7 o'clock or whatever, I mean, it took me 30 minutes to get out of the track. That's how many people were
Wow.
still there. And they keep improving that weekend. I know they had a big fireworks show Saturday night. So, they keep, I mean, that's the flagship event for VIR. And I'm glad to see it continue to grow and be strong there. So,
Yeah.
yeah, just for being where it is in the middle of nowhere, you drive a little 2-lane road to get to it. It puts on a nice little show.
Yeah, I actually that was you're spot on with that. Was the attendance for that weekend across all of the races that I was watching, I was really surprised to see how big the crowds were that were around it. Leading up to these events, I try and I look through old races and see what's happened in past races there. And you know it was it was very noticeable, the difference between even just a couple years ago and this year's weekend. So
When I
yeah.
think back to 2021 to then, like it's a huge jump. And
Yeah.
yeah, well, yeah, GT Rain. If only IMSA would actually tell us the numbers. I mean, they're not WEC that tells you during the race how many people they have there. It's always a big secret. But I did see a local article. Um, the VIR told the local news affiliate that they get over 30,000 people there on Saturday and Sunday for that weekend. So
Wow.
it's a nice turnout.
Yeah, that definitely is. That's a solid turnout. Good for VIR. Moving on to Indy, though, now. That is our next round on the championship, and a unique track. In IMSA, of course, the most infamous roval, you could call it, or the oval within a road course. I know roval's a bit of a NASCAR term, but the Indy road course, which utilizes part of the oval configuration, is 14 turns, 2.4 miles or 3.9 kilometers. And the majority of the track is purpose-built road course. It's flat as a pancake on the infield portion, but it also does utilize very short stretches of the oval configuration. So, talk to us a little bit about the track and some of the challenges that it presents to you guys when you're trying to set up a car for the circuit. That is, again, it's pretty unique for compared to what the other IMSA tracks that we visit are.
Yeah, it's definitely unique. As far as the track, I mean, you have a couple different types of asphalt there, basically, because you have a grooved asphalt on the super speedway for the Indy cars, and then you have a more normal type of asphalt in the infield. So that plays with your tire deck a little bit. But yeah, like you said, there's no elevation change or anything like that. The banking on the speedway is very minimal. I mean, we're only on we don't even use the turn like F1 used to use turn 4. We don't even use that. We go through the extra couple turns they added there. So kind of straightforward on the setup. But you have to have a car that can handle all the twisty bits. But it's a very given take track because your main passing zone is going into turn 1, so you have to have a car with some straight line speed as well. So we were lucky to kind of um, find a good setup last year pretty quickly. We ended up being number 1 in P2 in that session last year. And was zero testing there and zero track knowledge. Everybody's coming in there now with a year under their belt and with setups. And lots of people have come back there and test again.
Yeah.
Although it's a harder place to test than a lot of the other episode tracks you go to, unless you're Porsche Penske and you own the track. um, they've probably gotten a few more laps than other people have.
I would
But
imagine.
yeah, so but I mean, like I said before, it is I was not prepared to be as impressed as I was when I got there. I had only ever seen the speedway from an airplane, flying into Indianapolis for other things. I'd never actually even gone on a tour of it or anything. So yeah, when you pull in there and when you walk through Gasoline Alley and you're standing on the front straight and you're looking at the pylon and you're looking at the grandstands, it's an impressive place. When you do the track walk, looks like an awesome place for fans. They have put a lot of money. Penske Entertainment has put a ton of money back in the track. There's monitors, huge monitors everywhere, and a lot of viewing in the infield. So, I know attendance was a little disappointing, I think, last year. I hope to see a big attendance there this year. I'm sure having a 6 hour WeatherTech race will help, and
Yeah.
having it be year two as well will help. But yeah, I mean, you talk about like dream podiums to stand on. I mean, you got to put Indy up there in America as one of the best ones you could have. You get your car put up on a little lift and all that stuff. It's pretty cool. You stand there where history has literally been made, and everybody wants to kiss the bricks. So
I
that's
was just gonna yeah, I was just gonna ask that, is that something that, you guys would do? Because I couldn't remember if it was done last year. I
so
know they did it in WeatherTech, but
last year was our first year there, and IMSA sent out a note to all the teams and said, we want you to be able to get the full Indy experience, and we will allot time after the races for the photos. And so yeah, there's pictures of JDC kissing the bricks in a very dark speedway with
yes, that's
not
true.
any lights on it.
Yeah,
So
you're
yeah,
right.
it
Yeah.
is something easy to do. Yeah,
I remember seeing the images of Windward kissing the bricks now, and it was,
yeah,
like pitch black out.
yeah.
So I guess,
So yeah, we're yeah, I mean, we're excited about it. My crew, I mean, most of them or all of them, well, besides one, live off of my car, live in Indianapolis and work at the shop every day. So it's their home race. A lot of them are from Indiana. I know they'll have a lot of family there. You look at, or Robert lives there. You look at, he had a bunch of his IndyCar friends come and surprise him last year on the grid. So it's a big race for a lot of us at Brian Herta, and we want to. Yeah, you want to win at Indy. I mean, there's no. I was texting with Dennis about it yesterday. I said, imagine if we could go podiums at Daytona and Indy in the same year. I mean, that you're kind
yeah.
of checking off the two biggest tracks in America when you do that. So would be cool, and is definitely the goal.
And this year's race for you guys, it's not just going to be you guys that are at this round at Indy. We're also going to have the Porsche Carrera Cup there, Lamborghini Super Trofeo, and then of course the Michelin Pilot Challenge supporting the WeatherTech Championship. This is going to be a 1 o'clock Eastern time start for you guys. So this is essentially, during some of the warmest time of the day. I know that it's, middle to late September in Indy, so it's not going to be, hot. It's not going to be as hot as it could be in the middle of summer, but this is going to be a little bit different than what you guys experienced last year, where it was sort of that late afternoon finishing off into the evening. So do you see any challenges in that, or have being racing in this time slot for a large part of the season, do you think it's just it's going to be pretty similar,
Yeah,
similar specifically for tire wear, right? That's the main thing I guess I'm
yeah.
getting
I
at.
think it feels more like old hat to do it that way. Quite frankly, I find it a little disappointing. I mean, look, you can't do this to us, Im. So you can't give us this awesome thing last year and take big chunks of it away from us. You can't give us a 4 hour race at Indy into the dark and now just make us do 2 hours in the daytime.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm not too worried about tire dag. We didn't see a whole bunch of crazy dag last year. I mean, we ran our rears for a long time last year. Um, if you want to talk about tire dag, just not to bring rehash VIR, but I don't know if this is true, but I was listening to the radio Le Mans broadcast yesterday of the race, and they said that the '99 car didn't change tires during their pit stops. So that would mean that they did the whole race and qualifying on the same fronts and finished second. So they guess they were really not worried about tire dag if that really is what happened. So yeah, I think it's kind of a straightforward weekend for us, but yeah, I feel like there's another level of pressure when you go to a place like Indy and when you go into the second to last, the penultimate round of the championship. I mean, it's time to. There's no more time for screwing up. It's time to have great finishes and finish strong if you want it to be a season to remember.
Yeah, definitely. It should be an exciting race, even though that it's not the 4 hour, into the
Uh,
evening race. Boo.
I like 4 hour races. I mean,
Yeah,
had pretty good runs in them this year.
that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. The
Give us more
Daytona.
4 hour races, John. Come on.
Yep. Well, maybe you can lobby IMSA for another 4 hour race or two.
But seeing the WeatherTech guys do 6 hours there, I think will be pretty cool as well.
Yeah.
I kind of what people thought was what we were doing last year was a test run for this year with us
Mhm.
going into the dark. So a lot of people were thinking that this was going to be a Saturday race for them, and that they were going to run into
Oh,
the dark on a Saturday night, and then that we would probably end up being the Sunday afternoon show, which we've done a couple times before. We did that at VIR in 21 because of a TV slot, and we did it right at America last year, I think it was. So yeah, a little disappointing on that. I think I saw that race goes 1 to 7. So
well, 11:30 to 5:40.
okay, so I can't read. So yeah, so it'll be completely in the daytime. So never mind. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get it. I mean, they want to have the big race on Sunday and all that kind of stuff. But
But
yeah, a little surprising we did all that work.
y-
We were even asked to give feedback to the race director about where the lights were positioned
yep.
on the track because they had all it was all temporary, lights from Sunbelt Rental, and about if the turns were lit up and the braking zones were lit up well enough. So yeah, kind of really thought you'd see
Huh.
this be a night race or something that goes into tonight. But it might also be a logistical thing because Indy's not built for any type of. I mean, it's dark in there once the lights go out, so
Yeah.
even for fans to leave and everything at the end of the night is a little challenging. I know people were running into that at the end of the 500 because it ran so late into the
True.
this year because of the rain. So maybe it's a logistical thing, but I still, with the endurance races, I mean, nothing's better than that finish at Road Atlanta at the end into the dark and at
Yep.
Sebring, So I just feel like
Sebring
it
the yeah.
goes along with IMSA and endurance races is to have the nighttime finishes.
That's a good point. I was gonna ask you if there were any issues that you had heard of last year, but it sounds like that wasn't
The
necessarily.
biggest issue for us was we had cars that didn't have the lights to run at night.
Yeah.
We had streetcar headlights, and that's what we were working with. There was no add-on packages from Audi for us or from Hyundai to, you couldn't run like the Nurburg lights that the Elantras run at the 24. So yeah, that was just the biggest problem for us at the end. And we had the in-car camera in our car last year, and so when you have that, you're watching it the entire 4 hours when it's on your box because you have the constant feed out of it. And the
Yep.
last 30 minutes, I just saw Mark Wilkins' headlights going from one set of mirrors to the other, and that's all you could see. And then he could see like he said he could see nothing behind him but Mark's headlights. He said there could be 10 more cars behind him, he wouldn't have been able to see it.
Man.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
You don't
still
have
some things to.
in a GT3 car, you have the camera with the
Yeah.
Bosch system that alerts you of all the like you don't have any of that here.
Yeah.
We have a camera in our car, and it's a backup camera for an RV.
Yeah.
Literally, that's what it is. Like it's nothing. It's not the Bosch system or anything fancy like that. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's I heard John and Shay, and they're talking about people running out of fuel and pilot more often than you see in WeatherTech. Well, yeah, of course, because we don't have any live data coming out of the car, so it is all hand calculations and the driver reading you the fuel consumption number every lap, and you working in a spreadsheet. In a
Yeah.
GT3 car, the computer's sitting there telling you all that fuel information constantly. So I think that's what makes pilot more fun from the strategy side. Is it's truly like old school, you and your driver. drawing it up and seeing what you can do, kind of thing.
Yeah. No, it should be a good race, even though it's not going into the evening, all of that. Maybe this is something that, you know, some of the learnings from last year can be taken back, and hopefully in the future we'll see some some evening or nighttime finishes here at Indy, whether it be for the Pilot Challenge or the WeatherTech Championship or both. How awesome would it be to have, you know, two evening finishes, you know, on a Saturday night and then on a Sunday, or, you know, I mean, even a Friday night race for the Pilot Challenge.
We do it at Daytona, yeah, and at
Exactly.
Red Atlanta, and I'll give it to IMSA. I mean, they are always trying new stuff.
Yeah.
The Porsche Carrera Cup race at Sebring went into the dark this year. You know, they ran that one
Yeah.
into the dark. So the
Huh.
first one, we raced, then Lambos raced, then Porsches raced, and that was that was pretty cool, I thought. I don't know how cool the Porsche Cup drivers thought it was, but
Yeah.
yes, they do try different things with the schedule given what they have, and I think with the growth we talked about at the start of the season, you know, I think you're going to continue to see the schedule expand for IMSA. I just don't see how it doesn't. I don't see how you don't get more standalone races for pilot or more splits in the WeatherTech schedule. So you could just, I mean, the demand is there. They got to
Yeah.
feed the machine. You got to strike while the iron's hot. And obviously, John and his team are very capable of growing it. You've seen what they've done, so I think they're going to continue to do that. And they seem to be listening to the fans too. And so if that's what the fans want, yeah, that's what hopefully we'll get.
I'll tell you something that the fans want around here. We want GTPs back at CTMP.
Oh, you Canadians, yes, you and your GTPs back at CTMP.
Look, the
Yeah, we
LMP2s,
complain they're going to take LMP2 away from you too. You're just going to have a GT only race pretty soon.
and that would be fine. You know, there it's gonna put on a good race either way, but you know, we can always ask. We can That's all we can do, right? Politely ask.
I,
Um,
I think obviously it's awesome when you have all the classes together, but I've kind of enjoyed the different things they're doing this year with it.
I
And one
I
thing
completely
nobody
agree.
enjoyed was the TCR only race at Lime Rock. Well, that was an abomination. Don't ever do it again.
Yep.
But yeah, or the GT4 only race at Detroit last year is kind of
A mess.
besides Rory's car getting launched into the air was pretty lame. Yeah, so
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, you're right. IMSA's doing some great things. It was nice at VIR, the GT only aspect of it in the WeatherTech Championship race, really giving those cars an opportunity to shine. They're always being. I mean, uh, maybe. Do you feel that the TCR class also kind of plays second fiddle to the GS class a lot, or do you feel that it's more of an even split of concentration than it is, say, in the WeatherTech Championship with the GTs to the prototypes?
I mean, I don't know. It depends on sometimes on if you're just talking about from the TV side of it, it
Yeah,
really depends on the weekend. There's some weekends where you go, wow, we saw a ton in GT4 and we did not see hardly anything going on in TCR. When I look back to Mid Ohio and I'm rewatching the last 30 minutes, I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to be the coolest thing ever. And like we got talked about for,
yeah,
3 minutes of that. And it was all about the GT4 and was he going to make it on fuel? So yeah, but that's just kind of how it goes, right? You watch WAC. I mean, if you watch that on Sunday,
oh yeah,
it's 85% hypercar.
yeah,
If you watch the WeatherTech Championship when the GTPs are in it, it's you focus on that's what they're going to focus on. I think the people that get the worst is LMP2 seems to
I
like
agree.
never get TV coverage
Yeah,
when it comes to WeatherTech. And the only for some reason, the only time you see him is at Le Mans when I don't really care about him. They just show him constantly, it feels like, at Le Mans. I don't care about the stupid LMP2 race at Le Mans.
Well, I mean, for the longest time, that was like the one of the
Well, it
bigger
was the show,
classes,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, certainly you can feel jaded about it sometimes, but
Yeah.
it's multi-class racing. That's how it is. At the end of the day, we all get the same trophy, and when you're in it, like you don't. I mean, like I've said a million times, like I don't. The GT4 guys could be having a book burning, and I wouldn't notice. Where I'm
Yep.
solely focused on the TCR battle and. Yeah, it's a balance. I know a couple of those guys from NASCAR Productions, and it's a tough thing for them to do, and they have to keep certain storylines going. Certain drivers, are going to draw viewers. A guy like Robert's always going to get more attention than a guy like Denny. That's just kind of how it is. But
Yep.
you know, all you can do is keep having great finishes and get your name out there more and more. I mean, we get
Exactly.
interviewed way more on TV and radio and pre-race on the grid this year than we ever have before. And I'd say even more after we never got a pre-grid interview ever until after we won at Mid Ohio in 4 years. We never got one, and then at Watkins we got one right away. So go win and get yourself talked about.
There you go. There you
And
go.
yeah. Luckily, I got a driver that's really good at getting himself talked about because he's extremely fast. So
That's true. That helps for sure when people to talk about you. Travis was saying, I think when we were talking about the about Indy, the front straight looks like I-65 when the lights are on. Yeah, the cars get lined up down that long straight stretch, and it can look a bit like a highway.
well, and that I will say that is the one thing that's terrible for TV is when you go in the night. I mean, think
Oh
about like
yeah,
if you don't have the helicopter shot at Sebring and Petit, like, do you have any shots of? I mean, Daytona is obviously different because the whole track's lit, but like
yep.
without those overhead helicopter shots on restarts and stuff, you don't have a clue what's happening. In those,
They do a lot of in-car shots at that
yeah,
point. Yeah.
oh yeah, Le Mans at 3 in the morning is just all in car shots. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Well,
Or safety car shots because it's raining and they don't want to run.
well, oh yeah, that's probably a topic of
I won't go back
conversation.
down that road again. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a whole other kettle of fish. Is that the saying? I'm not 100% sure.
that
But
sounds Canadian. I've never heard that one.
well, we'll roll with it then.
Okay.
I don't know if it is. I don't know if it's exactly just Canadian, but we'll. It would have been.
I remember Carl Whitmer, Canadian. Yeah.
That's a whole other beaver dam or something would be, the Canadian. But I think that's gonna wrap things up here for the VIR. That's a Stu original right there. Says GT Rain. Yeah, he's very familiar with my my sayings that may or may not be completely wild or not. But before we get too far into the weeds here, this is probably a good opportunity to wrap it up. Aaron, you're going to be at Indy, so best of luck to you there. I will not be at Indy for this race, but I will be there for the season finale at Road Atlanta. So
There you go.
looking,
The best.
exactly.
Wow.
Looking forward to making the long drive to Atlanta, and but still, we'll get to see some great racing at Indy. Again, the Support Series races that are going to be present, we have the Porsche Carrera Cup, Lamborghini Super Trofeo, and the Michelin Pilot Challenge, all racing on Friday and Saturday at Indy. So go and check those out, whether it's live in person or on the IMSA provided streams. But that's going to do it for the VIR wrap up and Indy preview here today. We'll talk to you in the next one.
Thanks, Travis.